was on his way.
All right, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being here for the Friends of the Cabildo in the Louisiana State Museum. For the Friends of the Cabildo member lecture series tonight, I want to thank you for. We had a little bit of a had a little rearranging happen a couple weeks ago, so I'm happy to get these two back into the room, and we can talk about their latest book. Um, uh, Talking about the Chapel of Love, the story of New Orleans girl group, the Dixie Cups. To give you a little bit of, just to let you know, we have two more lectures happening as a member of the Friends of the Cabildo, or if you're not a member, you can pay $10, but you can be a member for as low as $40. We have a lecture next Tuesday. They're always Tuesdays at 6 o'clock. A Friendship Interrupted. New Orleans and Cuba enjoyed a strong commercial relationship prior to the embargo by Dr. Joshua Goodman. And then we'll take a week off for Thanksgiving. And then November 30th, we'll have the 14th Colony, the forgotten story of the Gulf South during America's Revolutionary Era with Mike Bunn. So we're booked, honestly, we're booked all the way through February 15th, 2022. So we've got plenty of opportunities for you to be, to take advantage of that. And I want to thank you all for being here tonight. So, Steve is going to talk a little bit about the book, and then he's going to have a conversation with Rosa, and that's how it's going to flow tonight. But I would say that we are going to ask some questions at the end if we can. So if you do have a question, I know if it's in the very first minute you have a question, still put it in the chat because we all forget things sometimes. So then I'll be able to ask them of Steve and Rosa later on. So with that, I want to welcome our two guests tonight. We have Rosa Hawkins, who was a member of the Dixie Cups, and the youngest member of the Dixie Cups. And then we have Steve Bergsman, who's an author of multiple books, including books on Billy Preston. He put a book out recently, I Put a Spell on You, The Bizarre Life of Screamin' Jay Hawkins. And then he's got a whole host of books as well. But we are talking about tonight, we're talking about the Chapel of Love, and I am putting a link. So if you watched tonight and you haven't read the book yet, there's a link so that you can purchase the book and you can learn even more than what you're going to learn tonight. So with that, I'm going to introduce Steve and Rosa, and thank you guys for taking part tonight.
It's good to be here.
Thank you for having us.
So would you like me to start, Jason?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So this is, I worked on a number of books about musicians and singers. And this book it's really Rosa's book. I helped the writer write this book. But this is one of the most compelling books that I've worked on. And it's everybody knows the era of the girl groups and all the great singers up from that time, and the songs were bouncy and romantic, but sometimes the story behind those songs are much darker, and the story behind Chapel of Love and the Dixie Cups are, despite the fact that they had these wonderful upbeat songs that live to today, Chapel of Love, Iko Iko, and many others, there's a story behind it all. And that was the story that Rosa wanted to tell. And that's how we came to Chapel of Love. So I'm going to ask Rosa a question and we'll go on from there.
Okay.
So Rosa, what made you write Chapel of Love?
Well, I wanted to get out to a lot of young people to get into the business of music. You don't have to go through a lot of things that I went through and other people went through. You have older people that supposed to take you in charge and show you how to do your right hand compared to your left hand. And you really believe these people because you don't know anything about the music industry other than hearing it on the radio. So when someone hear you singing and they know you're not a professional, so they feel that they can get you and twist you and turn you any kind of way they want. And unfortunately for you, you are believing everything this person is telling you.
Rosa, before we get into your career, I just want to ask this one question. There was musical talent in your family behind both you and Barbara, and that was your mom. Wasn't she a singer?
Yes, she was the lead singer, as they used to call him then, for Papa Celestin. He had a big band. He was one of the big bands in her days, you know, her age. And she sang, she said she sang beautifully, and I got everything from her: ways, attitudes, everything.
Which one of you, you or Barbara, which one sounded more like your mother?
Barbara did.
Barbara did.
Yeah, because she had the high voice. I had the bass voice, as they call me.
So that's an interesting story, because with that bass voice, isn't that how you ended up with the group that was before the Dixie Cups, the Meltones? Why don't you give that story?
I didn't catch everything
You
you
said,
said.
tell them about the Meltones.
Oh, the Meltones. Well, Barbara has always been a happy-go-lucky little girl, I'll say. And we were coming, I think she was coming from the supermarket, and this young lady stopped Barbara, and she said, "Hey," she said, "is your name Barbara?" And Barbara looked at her and she said, "Yeah, why?" And Joan said, "Because I hear you can sing." And Barbara said, "Yeah, why are you asking all these questions about me?" She kind of stunned Joan. And Joan said, "Well, we're getting a group together because everybody in the state of Louisiana knew that St. Augustine High School would have this monumental talent show once a year, and everybody across the state could enter. I don't even think they were giving out money, because we didn't get anything. But she asked Barbara, she said, "Well, you want to sing with my brother and I?" And because we're getting a group together. And Barbara said, "Well, I'll have to go home and ask my mom and, you know, get back with you." So Barbara went home. She didn't want to let Joan know that she was excited. Okay, so she casually left and she went home. And by the time she got home, boy, she shot up those stairs. And she said, "Mother," she said, "this girl want me to sing with her, and she's getting a group together for St. Augustine High School. And can I sing? Can I sing?" And Mother said, "Well, just calm down. Who is this girl?" And Barbara said, "Her name is Joan." And my mom said, "Okay, Joan what?" And Barbara said, "I forgot to ask her, but she's coming over here." And then within a few minutes, Joan was knocking on the door. And as they talked, they found out that
Not then,
we found out,
not then.
not them.
No, not until we got ready to go to New York.
By the way, that's Barbara.
Hi.
Okay, I
There
was
as
trying
well.
to
So
put
you
it
have
together.
two of the Dixie Cups there, Rosa and Barbara.
Right. Go ahead, you can finish the story.
Well, I found out, they found out, whoever found out.
It wasn't then. It wasn't until after we met, see, you're going ahead. After we met the talent scout and all of that, and we were about to go to New York, and my grandmother asked who was this person we were going to New York with. And that's when we found out we were cousins with Joan Marie.
So that's how the group got together.
So the way I heard it, the way we wrote it, is that there were four originally. It was Barbara and Joan and two guys.
Right.
And
Correct.
one of the guys' mother got sick or something and had to
Correct.
drop out.
Right.
And they needed a
Bass.
fourth.
You heard her.
And as Rosa said, she had a deeper voice than everybody else. So Barbara, you suggested that my sister come in, right?
Right.
Right.
I said, my sister sings bass, so we can use her.
And this group was called the,
Meltones.
how'd you do at the contest?
Not well.
Not well.
We didn't come in first,
Not well.
second, or third.
But somebody spotted you there and thought you had talent.
Right. That person was Joe Jones.
So let me just, so Joe Jones, for anybody who doesn't remember, had a not really successful career, but he had a hit song around 1960 called "You Talk Too Much." But he was a New Orleans singer and musician, and he had been around since the late 40s. And he backed a number of people on tour, including B.B. King and Shirley and Lee. Shirley and Lee was another New Orleans group. And then he had his hit song, and he couldn't find a follow-up, and he was scratching around, making like a talent scout, and he saw the Meltones. And Rosa, what happened next?
Well, as Barbara said, we didn't win anything, but one of the young ladies that was on the talent show knew my sister Barbara, and she asked Barbara, she said, "Barbara, do me a favor." And Barbara said, "Yeah, what?" And both of their names were Barbara. And Barbara said, first Barbara, she said, "This guy saw me at the talent show and he want me to come to his house and audition for him." And she said, "But I don't know this guy and I'm not going." So she asked Barbara, my Barbara, if she would go with her. And Barbara said, "Yeah, we'll go. I'll go with you." And it threw me on the side. I just went flying out the window somewhere. I didn't go, but Barbara and Barbara went to Joe's house, which was on New Orleans Street. And Barbara said when they walked in, she was kind of haphazard about the interior of the house, but so be it. And
It was
every
kind of
time
run
we
down,
would-
right?
I'm sorry.
The house was kind of run down.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
It was leaning.
It was leaning on one side. It was on one side. So Joe asked Barbara, we say, "I have you marked on the program because I wanted to get in touch with you."
He said, "Weren't you the girls with the green dresses on?"
Because Barbara made the green dresses. Okay, very, very shiny. What was that material? Whatever it was, but it was pretty. And he kept looking at Barbara all night while other Barbara was singing and auditioning and everything. So later, I think they took a break, and Barbara A told Barbara B she was very uncomfortable with him and she didn't want to stay there at his house to audition. Now, at meantime, they did meet the original Mrs. Marilyn Jones with her 5 children. And when I met her, she was one of the sweetest ladies on the planet. And, you know, she got a standing ovation just being who she was, to put up with all of that. But anyway, they had to have another rehearsal, and
But
she
didn't-
kept
didn't
looking
they,
at
didn't Joe
Barbara.
say, geez, I remember you guys from your performance at the contest, and I was interested in you, but I didn't know how to contact you. So it was good to
Right.
meet you.
Right.
And did he go to your house soon afterwards? to meet your
Yes.
mother?
He said he wanted to talk to our parents. And he said there were a few other groups on that I'm interested in. The 5 DJs, I said, well, they're at my house. And he said, somebody else. I said, well, everybody's at my house rehearsing. He said, well, can I come home with you? And I said, I don't know, let me call my mom. So I called my mom and she said it was okay. So he followed us back to my house. I dropped Barbara off and then he went to my house. And that's how he got to my house to hear the Meltones and the 5 DJs.
Mhm.
And so he immediately called somebody in New York, right?
Exactly. Was it Shirley?
No,
No,
Mickey,
Sylvia.
Sylvia, of Mickey and Sylvia.
right.
And he told her he had a gold mine, but he didn't have any money. So he asked her to send him money to bring us to New York. He was going to be our manager and he would give her half of the management fee. Lies. So she sent him the money and
We did,
So
we.
you
out-
all bundled into a car and traveled to New
Three
yes,
York?
cars.
Three cars.
Three cars.
So,
In freezing weather.
Barbara and Rosa, and Joe Marie, you were teenagers, right?
Right.
Yes.
You weren't. So were you able to travel? Did you need you need special permission?
yeah, he had
Yes,
to,
he had to have special
Permission.
permission to bring us out of Louisiana into another state. And my mom asked a friend of hers, did she know him? And he said, I know of him. And I just want to show my face to him so he can straighten up. And when he Shut
We're
up,
talking about
Walker.
Joe Jones now.
it didn't help.
Yeah. And when he walked in, Joe really started stuttering. He couldn't get anything out because he turned around and he saw this big guy just standing at the kitchen door looking. And Joe said, what are you doing here? He said, my business, that's my nieces. I'm here to protect them. Now I'm letting them go to New York with you, but I don't want to have to come to New York to find you.
It was the three of us and it was Vivian Bates.
Yeah.
And a guy named
Al
Moody
Moody.
Scott.
Oh,
Moody Scott. I think he was from Baton Rouge. So he took these four groups, us, Vivian, Moody, and the 5 DJs and his band. He had like a 7 or 8 piece band. So that's why we needed 3 cars.
So you get to New York. Sylvia arranges someplace for you ladies to stay.
Right.
And then Joe Jones didn't really have any contacts, so you guys had to really walk the pavement in New
Right.
York, right? To
Right.
Right.
meeting different groups
Different producers.
and producers. So what song did you have to sing to them every time you met a different producer?
Thank you, Mama.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Papa.
Written by Earl King.
Earl King. And Earl King was a friend of yours in New Orleans, right?
Yes,
Yes.
he's also an artist.
Yeah. I think he had a couple of hits.
Trick
right?
Bag. Trick Bag was his big hit.
So you walk in the pavements of New York and you end up at the Brill Building, right?
Right.
Correct. Correct.
And you and Joe takes you to one of the songwriting groups, a husband and wife team.
No.
No,
Joe brought us to Lieber and Stoller, the
Lieber and
producer.
Stoller.
And
Okay.
after they heard us sing, they were the ones that put us with Jeff and Ellie.
Okay, and we're talking about Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich, and they were a husband and wife songwriting team.
Correct.
So you go to see Jeff and Ellie, and what happens next?
We started singing and their mouth just dropped open. And we're
Because you
looking
did
at
say-
each
because
other
you
like,
guys do something special. Most of the girl groups were a lead singer and backgrounds, but you guys
Exactly.
were different.
but we weren't. That's the way we rehearsed the song to sing, and that's the way we sang in New Orleans or whatever we were doing. So
In 3-part
He had-
harmony.
Yes.
yes, and
3-part harmony.
3-part harmony. And as you say, most of the groups in New York at the time, they didn't have a 3-part harmony. They had a lead and background, and that's what made us stick out, but in a good way. And when we did Thank You, Mama, Thank You, Papa, he asked us to do it again, and we said okay, and we did it again. And he said, I like that. Well, Jeff and Ellie, they were looking at each other and looking at us and listening, saying, we never heard this before. And Ellie asked and said, well, where did you guys learn how to do that? And Barbara said, well, it just comes natural because that's the way we sang, in church and anywhere else we wanted to go. So they asked us to
Introduce
sing
us
it,
to songs.
introduce us to some songs. And
So these
they
were
decided-
songs that they just had around, right? These were songs that they had written.
That they had written,
yeah,
right?
they were on the shelf, as they call it. But they hadn't pulled it down for anyone else that we knew to sing it. And I think it was Ellie, whichever one, said, well, we want to try this song and see how you like it. And they started Chapel of Love. Well,
We didn't
said
like it.
we didn't like it, but we didn't know how to say we didn't like it.
So they asked us, they said, well, you like this? And we say, I said, well, do we have to sing it like that? And they said, no, how do you want to sing it? So I said, give us a minute. So we went in the corner and we came up with Chapel the way it is, starting off a cappella. And then, we told them, then you can bring the band in. So that's how Chapel was born.
And that's how our reputation more or less preceded us, because everybody wanted to hear this group that was not lead and background. They wanted to hear this group that's going around the country singing 3-part harmony. And we still do that, thank God, today. We still have those 3-part harmonies.
So Chapel of Love, how quickly, so they signed you pretty quickly, right? That you got
Right.
signed?
Right.
Yeah.
And then you went to the studio. Do you remember anything about that first recording?
Nothing special, but special, because each musician had his own way of playing. They started the band, but it didn't have to be as though you were in a box and you had to play the notes this way.
Wardell wrote it. Wardell Kazare. He put together a masterpiece. And I'm not saying it because it's Chapel, but he was a genius that was never sought out.
So Waddell, I think, was the arranger on that
Yes,
session.
he was.
And I should say that Waddell, and I have trouble pronouncing his last name,
Kazare.
but it
Kazare.
begins with a Q, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
And,
you got the
he
first
was
one.
a veteran musician, again, New Orleans. So New Orleans had a lot of great
Right.
songwriters
Yes.
and musicians. And Waddell did the arrangement when they sang Chapel of Love
Right.
in New York. And he doesn't get credit for that. And
No.
He doesn't.
and Waddell would eventually have problems with Joe Jones.
Yes.
So before we get into how Chapel of Love took off, so let me try and give you a little background. So Joe Jones was their manager. He also had sort of parental rights over you, right? Because you guys were teenagers.
Right.
Yes.
And he found them a place to live. You lived where again, Rosa?
I think it was in
Manhattan at the old 100 on 8th Avenue. I can't think of the name of the building now. It was the newest building at that time.
So you had the three of you had one apartment, and Joe took an apartment on the top floor, right?
Yes.
yes.
So the thing to remember here is Joe Jones had no money.
Right.
So all the apartment rentals for both the Dixie Cups and for Joe Jones on the top floor
Mhm.
where everything was coming out of the Dixie Cups.
Right.
Right.
But you
Right.
didn't know that at the
Right.
time. You were young girls.
Right.
Right, and you weren't even getting any money. You were on allowance or something?
No. No, it's just that we did have some gigs, and so we had a little money from the
And our
gigs.
parents
And our
was
parents had
sending
sent
us
us
money, and anytime we needed food or whatever, we'd call our moms and they kept sending. They never thought evil of us or him until, it's like the
Later
third or
on.
fourth time. And my mom said, well, is this guy paying you guys? And we didn't know how to say no. There's certain letters that you stop with mom, and he would say, "Oh, but he said it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay." So this is the way it went for a long time at the Bryant Hotel.
There you go. So Chapel of Love, I mean, people work for a long time to get the hit record, but you guys were #1 right out of the box.
Right.
Right.
And did you go on the road then? What happened?
No, well, they sent us back to New Orleans.
After the
recorded.
recording.
Yeah.
They recorded Chapel of Love, and they sent us back to New Orleans. And we weren't excited because we didn't know the music industry, okay, and we didn't know how magnified having a hit record, a #1 record, and you knew on the block. So I never forget. It was a Saturday morning. I was doing my chores, and the song came on, and it sounded familiar to me. And I started singing with it. On to the chapel. And I was like, oh, I said, mother. I mean, I broke out in a steam roller to go upstairs. And she said, what's the matter? What's the matter? Is something wrong? I said, no, it's playing. The song is playing. It's playing on the radio. She said, calm down, Rosalie. Sit down and call. I said, but mother, that's the song that we did. She said, yes, I know. And there will be millions of others that you're going to hear on the radio. And that's how we heard Chapel of Love on the radio the very first time.
And then you got called to come back to New York, right?
Right.
Yes.
We went back, and this is when we got the apartment. Like Rosa said, the first time we were staying in the
Bryant Hotel.
the Bryant Hotel. And then after we went home, the Jerry and Mike called us and told us we had a hit on our hands and we had to come back to New York. And I say, for how long? He said, forever.
We still didn't, we just didn't know the magnitude of what we were getting into.
So
Yeah.
we moved in, bought furniture, did all of this good stuff, and we started working with the different agencies. And we started going out on jobs. And then we met Dick Clark, and we went on a 3-month tour with him. And after that, we did a lot more tours, Sonny and Cher and a whole lot of other people, Shindig and everything.
What was it like on a Dick Clark tour?
It was amazing. It was amazing. We met so many people that we had heard their songs and never knew we were going to actually meet them. So it was great.
So this is there where you met Beverly Lee of the Shirelles?
Yes.
Yes, on one of Dick Clark's tours. And as we said, the Shirelles took us in as their children because they saw we did not have any idea in the world what kind of wig to wear, where to buy a wig, makeup, and all the things that we needed on stage that Joe did not take the time
to find somebody to teach us.
Find anyone to guide us. So the Shirelles said that they would, they'll take us. And we went to wig shops and uniform, dresses and everything. And they stuck around us. They wouldn't let us go into the wrong way or anything. And
Did they warn you about the boys on the bus?
No, Brian Hyland, he came on the bus. I had gone on the bus to get something. And he said, and who are you? And I said, Barbara Hawkins with the Dixie Cups. And who are you? He said, I'm Brian Hyland. I said, and what's your record? Because I didn't know. And he told me, Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny. I said, oh, that's you. So we became friends.
As a matter of fact, we got to see Brian and his son right before the pandemic. And he and his son was on the show with us. And it was like, it was just yesterday that we last saw him, but learning all those things, and we met this makeup artist, what is his name? And he showed us how to do makeup. He came over to the house. He would ring the bell, and the doorman, his name was Sam. He was sweet. And he said, Dixie Cups, he said, I have a guest for you. And we said, okay, well, who is it, Sam? And he said, I don't know this guy. I've never seen him before. And we could hear him in the background saying, just tell the Dixie Cups that, what's his
I
name?
can't remember his name, but he was a beautician and a makeup artist.
And he let him in.
God.
And we said, oh, okay. Well, he then met our parents, because our parents had come up, and they were looking at him, and he was looking at them and looking at us. And mother said, excuse me, who are you? And we went, oh God, we're going home now. Because our parents were so smothering with us, and they didn't want us to get into the wrong thing. And he walked up and he said, well, I'm
God, I can't remember. He
Yeah.
was also a representative for Flory Roberts
makeup.
Now, Barbara and Rosa, the monies from the Dick Clark show and other tours, didn't Joe Jones get that money himself? He took
Yes.
the
Are
money.
you telling me they had money from those shows? We
Yeah,
never saw
You actually never saw a dime of that. That went straight to Joe Jones,
because
right?
what happened, Joe told us, since we had the apartment, we had to pay rent and lights and so forth and so on. So since we were on the road, he say, let the money come here and I'll pay your rent and lights and blah, blah. Well, we didn't have any reason to doubt him. We didn't know then he was a liar and a thief. So we said, okay. So,
And every time we returned home, whether it was a 2-month or 3-month tour, I returned home,
the lights were
and
off.
we tried to open the door and we couldn't open the door. And then you snap for the lights and the lights are not coming on. And we said, well, what is going on? So Joe comes running down the stairs. Oh, y'all here. And we said, why are the lights out and the telephone's not on? Oh, well, I had a lot of long distance calls from Europe, and everybody in Europe wants to see the Dixie Cups and they love you and yada, yada, yada. And I forgot to pay some of the bills, but Barbara, you have the rest of the money, don't you? And Barbara said, I do? What money? We don't have the rest of the money. You had it. So we had to go through that horrible.
You had to go through that dance with him all the time.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
And he was living actually on your money upstairs,
exactly.
not with his wife, right?
Nope.
No, with his mistress.
With his
Okay,
girlfriend.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you were
And-
supporting both Joe and his girlfriend upstairs.
Right.
Exactly.
Joey.
Exactly.
Right. And their children.
and everything. Look at Steve's face. Steve say, what?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they had 3 kids up there.
So you know where we're going with this Joe Jones, everybody. So you know where we're going with Joe Jones, because it is only going to get worse. But before
Right.
we get into before it gets worse, let's go back to the music a second. And you worked with Jeff and Ellie, and they were quite a famous songwriters.
Right.
And what was it like working with Ellie Greenwich and Jeff Barry?
It was wonderful because she didn't portray herself as the typical New York woman, business woman that snap her finger and you're supposed to, do this, or snap her finger and do that. She was very calm, and she would ask us about each song that we were about to get into. She would play it herself or Jeff, either one of them would play it. And they could tell by the look on our faces, we were saying, oh, okay, what have we gotten ourselves into, because they had a certain type of way of playing the music that we were not used to. I mean, we knew about country and Western, but we didn't know that someone was going to introduce this to us to sing. And Ellie would say, do you like that song? And we go, well, can we try it another way? And she said, sure, whatever you want. And that's how we developed between the two of us. I mean, the five of us. And she never shoved it down our throat, or she never screamed at us or anything, because she saw that we were just young kids from New Orleans. And I guess if she had hollered at her, we probably all would have started crying and said, I want to go
One of the
home.
writers on Chapel of Love, there was a third writer, was Ellie and Jeff and Phil Spector. Did you ever meet Phil Spector at all?
Never,
Never,
never.
Did you hear the
And-
name?
and-
When you,
we had heard the name, but we didn't know until after Chapel was a hit that it had been recorded before by
Right.
the Ronettes and the Crystals. So they never played their records for us. They didn't want us to hear it, you know.
And every time our name came up for the, what is it?
Rock
The
and Roll
Rock and
Hall.
Roll Hall of Fame. And voting, your name went into a box and your name would be pulled out. Who's gonna stay, who's gonna go. And every year after Chapel of Love, Phil Spector blackballed us and we never got in.
so the backstory is that Phil Spector was the third writer of the song, and he wanted, this was before the Dixie Cups, he wanted the song for a couple of the groups that he worked with, like the
Right.
Crystals.
And
And it
Ronette.
never, there were at least two recordings and they didn't work. And Phil just put the song away.
Right,
And he wasn't really in favor of the Dixie Cups having this song. And then it became another #1 song. And he resented the fact, because he thought it was a loser song, that the Dixie Cups had all this success with it. So he never forgave or forgot Phil Spector.
right.
And years on, as the Dixie Cups were potentially candidates for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Phil Spector always blackballed him.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
So
Everybody
the
knows
next song
Kenny should
after Chapel of Love was another good hit for you guys. People Say. Do you remember anything
Yes.
about that?
Yes, we didn't like that one either. But we did it, and it was a hit.
It was.
Yeah, it was a pretty good hit. It's a nice song. I like that song quite a bit.
Yeah, quite a few
And,
people did like it.
And I think the audience liked it. I mean,
Yes.
was it a top 20 song or something?
Yes, it was.
Yes, yes.
So nothing, was Lee Bird and Stoller ever in the recording sessions, or they just let
They were
Jeff and
there.
Ellie
No, they
handle
were there
everything?
to, they listen and they added a clap here or a bass thing, whatever. But we more or less kind of use the conducting part of the song where we could put in our feeling of this particular song. And we would put it in and say, well, let's do this or let's do that. So they worked with us the whole time and we didn't come in bossy or anything. And everything worked out for us.
Well, we worked with Wardell, so he would know what to write and how to write. And he was so good. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for saying it again, but he was.
So that's, so let's, now I want to bring you over to my favorite Dixie Cup song. I just love this song. And this is a great story. So tell us how Iko Iko got recorded, Rosa.
Well, with Iko, we had been in the studio all day, us in the band, Mike and Jerry, and some of the control guys in the control room. And they went to get lunch for us.
Mike and
we said,
Jerry.
"No, we didn't want to go out, we would stay in and eat." And during that time, it was, we took a break and we started singing Iko Iko. And
Which
we had
was?
a Coke bottle, a tin cigarette ashtray, the tops for the drums. We had a stool to play on, And we just started playing around with Iko Iko. And we laugh and finish that verse.
Rosa, let me just
Okay.
interject here. So what was Ika Waika? Where did you know it?
That we knew that song from our grandmother. And it was from years back. She used to sing us that song. And if you live in New Orleans, you know about the Indians in New Orleans.
That's
So the
from
Indians in New Orleans was to come out Mardi Gras Day in these beautiful Indian outfits where they had stayed up all night to fix the costume. And we sang that. And after we did the song, I think it was Jeff, one of them, came out and say, "Hey girls, do that again." And we standing there and we're looking around the room like, where did that voice come from? We just thought it was just the three of us. And he came on the control again. He said, "It's Jerry." He said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Do that song again. I like it. We like it in here." And we said, "Oh, okay." So we didn't have the band to play with us. It was just us and our Coca-Cola bottle and our drum, the sticks and everything. And speaking of the Coca-Cola bottle, God rest his soul, and we thank him for it. Before Ed Bradley died, Katrina had just passed and washed us out of New Orleans. He came to the hotel where we were and he said, "You all have been doing Iko Iko for a number of years and you never received any type of anything from Coca-Cola Bottling Company. Okay, so I am gonna try and get something, even if it's just a commercial where you will get paid for it." But unfortunately, I guess it wasn't to be because he died right after that. And he never told us who the guy was that he was talking to.
Now, if I remember correctly, Rosa, the recording of Ika Waika that became the hit record, that was they recorded you girls singing there. You didn't even know it.
Right.
Right, we didn't. We had no idea.
So it's actually just you girls playing around. That's the song.
Exactly.
And we only did 2 takes.
Now this is important. Joe Jones wasn't there, was he?
No,
No.
no.
So
He
what
wasn't.
happened when Joe Jones heard that you recorded this song and they were going to put it out of the 45?
He hit the ceiling.
He lied. He said he had helped us to write the song in his house with his wife and his mistress and his children. And oh my God, a whole lot of nothing came
Because
up.
he couldn't say with his wife and his mistress, so he said with his wife and his secretary. Okay, the mistress became the secretary. Okay,
So,
and
so
she's
he
sitting
was
in his
claiming
woman's
that he
house.
wrote the song, but I think Lieber and Stoller knew enough
Exactly.
Right.
because he was in New Orleans at the time of the recording, right?
Yes. Yes. he
So
was.
they quickly
Exactly.
sent off
The
to have
writer.
the song registered in your name, right?
Right.
Right. Right.
And then he
And
comes
when-
back and he blows a fuse.
Mhm.
He tried every which way he could to get the copies of the songwriters contract that we had.
But they were gone.
In Washington, DC, but he couldn't get it. He was so angry. He couldn't get it. And when we realized what we had in our hand against this man, because we were never naive young people. We didn't do drugs, we didn't do guns, we didn't steal, we didn't have any of that. So we were, if you tell us, hi, I'm Stephen and I'm gonna be your manager and I'm gonna do so and so, we're gonna believe you. But when he came back and he found out that it was released,
It was recorded.
it was recorded because it was released in Europe first. It was a night show, something like what we're doing here, but with the disc jockey would play songs, and then the kids would call in and say, "Oh, I want to hear that song," and they start calling in for Iko Iko. And all the disc jockeys were saying, well, what is this? How do you even pronounce this? And they were constantly playing it over and over and over and over again.
So it forced Lieber and Stoller to release it because it was a hit over there. And they hadn't even played it over here.
So, so as we'll go on to this controversy with Joe Jones, but at some point you, the three of you, you asked for royalties, so what your royalties were for Chapel of Love. And what'd you find out, or what'd you get? How much money?
Well, the lady, her name was Maxine, I think it was. And she was always nice. I guess she had nothing against us. We
She
didn't
worked
have
for the
anything
record
against her.
company, Maxine,
Yeah, from the record
From
company.
the record company.
right?
And she came out and she said, "Hi, girls." She said, "How was the tour?" Yada, yada, yada. And we said, "Okay." And she said, "Here's your paperwork. So your check and everything. And we'll have the next one when it comes around." So I'm still sitting down, and I'm opening this paper. And you know how the old computers, as you got one sheet of paper and it just rolled and
Yeah.
paper just start falling and falling. I said, "What is this?" And she said, she turned around, she looked at me like, "Oh my God, they don't even know what's going on."
How much was it?
It was for, I think,
400.
no, what we got was 400 and some dollars.
So,
But-
so Chapel of Love, which sold something like 2 million records,
Right.
Yes.
and it was,
for
and you
a
only got
million and
400.
something. But after having that million title there, it started another title, withdrawals, given to manager, sent to New Orleans for manager's wife and children. And we're sitting there looking at each other like, this isn't for us. We don't have no children at home. And she said, "Oh, ladies," she said, "I think I better get Mike and Jerry to come out and talk to you." So they brought us in the room, and they said, "We know that's a lot of money." We said, "Well, where's our share?"
It is right
Well, it's right there, but Joe was coming into the office
Every week.
every morning,
there every week.
getting money to pay his rent, a mortgage in New Orleans, also to pay his school kids tuition, because they were getting let loose. All right, they were putting them out because they were not being paid. And Joe was really, he was horrendous. He was so angry. I think if he could have painted a shade of green on him, he would have went into the big Hulk.
So what was happening was Joe would go into the offices and ask for advances on the
Exactly.
royalties, saying that this money was for the girls. They needed
Right.
this money to send home.
And I am
Right.
their manager.
Yeah,
They
but
were doing that.
yes, as their manager, he was getting the money for the girls, but actually he was just keeping the money.
Exactly.
So when it came
Exactly.
time for the girls to get their royalties, it was already spent. Joe
Right,
had taken
exactly.
the money and spent all their, he in fact spent all their money, all the royalties from Chapel
Yes,
of
he
Love,
did.
leaving
Got 400 and
Barbara,
some
Rosa,
dollars each.
and your cousin with nothing. Or almost nothing, $400.
400,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And it was gone. We asked Joe, "Well, where's our money? Why? Oh, well, the dining room that we had in the apartment, he removed all of the shelves, okay? And he put in shelves where he could put in all his stationery, and he could put in pictures
He made it an
of us.
office.
And he would just do whatever he needed where he thought he needed. And I'm sitting there saying, this is not right. We did all that singing and rehearsing and in the cold, in the rain, and all we get is 400 and some dollars. And I asked him, I said, Joe, I said, what happened to our money? Well, I told you we had to, I had to do this and I had to do that, and I had to pay the rent and I had to pay the parking lot, and because if you had a car and you
That's
had,
right. Joe had a car, which you
Oh,
ladies
yeah.
paid for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you
So we
paid for
had
the
to pay
upkeep and
that.
gasoline for that car.
Mhm.
And he
We
just
paid
went,
for everything.
he just went on and on and on. And really, I got to the point where I was smoking at the time. I wasn't a big time smoker, but I still smoked. And I was sitting on the sofa. Jo Marie went in the bedroom. She slammed the door and locked it. She didn't want to hear nothing from anybody. And Barbara was knocking on the door. John, let me in. John, let me in. And I was sitting on the sofa opposite Joe. And he was sitting there and he was calling us names that I never knew existed. Okay, because my mother she was very covering of us. All right. And she didn't introduce, even though she was an entertainer herself, she didn't have to go that route that most entertainers, especially women, had to go. So she never introduced us to that bad side of the music industry. And he would sit at that table and he cursed us and he cursed us and he'd say names that I'm looking at him like, what is he speaking? Spanish? Because I never knew what he was doing. Well, I just got tired of it. I really did. I got tired of it, and I had we had bought some ashtrays in the village, and they had some nice ashtrays, but they were very, very big and about this thick. And I said to myself, I say, if Joe does not shut up by the time I have finished this cigarette, he's gonna get it in his eye. And I didn't say it loud enough. I didn't whisper it. I just said it to myself. And he just kept on and singing, and no good, and you this and you that. And I had the cigarette and I put it out. And I picked up the ashtray from the corner. And I said, Joe, please shut up. Oh, you can't tell me what to tell you. And I picked up the ashtray, Steve, at the corner, and he must have felt it. Because all I did was sing. I threw that ashtray and he jumped and he ran out the apartment without his keys, without his wallet, without anything. And see, to show that we were not street women, we could have taken that wallet and took whatever we wanted out of there. We could have done it. But that's not what we were about. We were about trying to get our money from him. And he ran out of the apartment. And
Well,
oh,
there's so actually, I got to go back to ICO. Sorry for switching around a bit, but
okay.
the ICO thing, the anger between Joe because he couldn't get the rights to ICO and Lieber and Stoller led to Joe taking you away from Lieber and Stoller, Redbird, right? That was your
Right.
label, right?
Mhm.
To another label.
Right.
So you moved on to another label, but you really had a contract with Redbird.
Right.
Right. But we didn't know this.
We didn't know
So
what
so
was-
he brought you another label, but you were at a contract with Redbird, and that led to some legal entanglements between Redbird and what was the other company, the other
ABC
label?
Paramount.
Paramount.
ABC Paramount, yeah.
So
We were
Joe,
dropped in the hole.
what was
We
that?
got dropped in the hole.
Yeah, so Joe took him to Paramount, signed him up, but they already had a contract with Redbird.
Right.
And then there was a legal issue, and then Paramount couldn't record you anymore. But then Redbird didn't want you, And what happened to the Dixie Cups?
We died.
That was it. That was the
Died.
end of your recording.
That was the end of our recording career.
Mhm.
But thank God we could still do live shows. So that's what kept us alive.
Well, ABC Paramount, when they heard us in the studio, they said they are our next, oh God, what was the name of the
Andrew
group?
sisters.
It was the Andrew sisters that they had. They said they are our next Andrew sisters.
But that didn't work out because Joe had
He
messed up.
slapped, he swapped everything. And like I said, I threw the ashtray at him and he ducked.
Well, you know,
Good thing
there's
you did.
a funny story you tell, Rosa, that when Joan Marie had enough, right? She said, that's it. I can't do this anymore. I'm going
Right.
back to New Orleans. What
Right.
did she do?
She went home and she worked for the
No,
Bell-
first before she got home, she picked up a stack of 45 records that we used to rehearse by when we wanted to do somebody's song on the show. And she just walked over to him. He was at the piano and she just took the whole stack and threw it on his head. And he was sitting there. He didn't know which way to go. So he finally got out the apartment and he called my mom and he said, Miss Hawkins, he said, she crazy. And my mother said, what are you talking about? Who's crazy? And he said, I'm talking about Rose. That girl is crazy. So my mother very calmly, she said, well, what did you do her? What did I do her? I didn't do her in anything. And my mom said, yes, you did. Because my daughter would not have thrown an ashtray at you if you had not done something. And at that point, his eyes got this big and he flew out of the apartment.
So at some point I should, because we're probably running out of time, Jason.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
You're okay.
So at some point, the Dixie Cups and Joe Jones finally split. But what makes the Dixie Cup story so fascinating is the fact that Joe Jones could not quit the Dixie Cups. And for all their years going forward as a singing group, they were no longer a recording act because of what happened with Redbird and ABC Paramount, but they were a singing group and they hit the road. And Joe Jones would claim, among other things, that he had the rights to Iko Iko, for example. But didn't he also claim that he owned the rights to your name, the Dixie Cups?
Yes, and we were the only group in New Orleans when the World's Fair came to New Orleans. And we hadn't heard from anybody, that's doing anything. And when I called the guy that we deal with, he said, oh, I was gonna call you guys. And he said, our lawyer said we needed to back off with Joe. Because
and why was that? Why was that?
Because Joe had put out that he owned the name. He owned our name.
And he said, if they hired us, he was going to throw an injunction on them. So not only did he take our money, but he was trying to take the shows that we did. But there was this guy in the Carolinas, Ron Peters.
Mm-hmm.
He knew of Joe and he didn't want to have anything to do with him. And Ron Peters kept us alive for at least 5 years.
And how did you resolve that issue with your name? Didn't you have to go to court?
No, not for the name. I had a lawyer to talk to me and he said, Joe can't do anything. He doesn't have anything in writing. You own the name because the Coca-Cola bottling company owned the name Coca-Cola. I mean, the Dixie Cups. So when we came out, they received a letter asking them if it was okay for us to use the name, before we got down the road. And they said as long as we kept it clean, they didn't have a problem. So we incorporated the name, and we are the Dixie Cups, not just Dixie Cups. We are the Dixie Cups. So we own our own name.
So I just want to, one story about Joe Jones, to indicate what kind of person he was. And and I think you were in Atlanta, maybe, this story. And he wanted to foster one of his girlfriends on you as the third Dixie Cup. So you want to tell that story, Rosa?
Well, Barbara and I, we were kind of tired of the back and forth, if and back and forth. So we went out in New York and we got day jobs. And
No. I'm talking about the time you were singing in Atlanta, and Joe Jones's girlfriend was supposed to be the lead singer of the Dixie Cup.
Oh yes, he was supposed. She came up. She was a pretty girl. She had a nice attitude. But we went to buy some things for us to go on stage, and all of a sudden, she has the front mic and everything. And I asked Joe, I said, well, what is going on? He said, oh, she's the leader of the group now.
I don't think so.
And you and Barbara, y'all just gonna do background singing.
I don't think so.
And all of this is beginning to pile on us. And
But
We
when you
did
got
the-
on stage,
we
you
did
guys
the-
cut
we
her,
did the-
right?
I'm sorry?
Barbara and Rosa, when you got on stage that night, you made sure she wasn't the lead.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
I
I
told
took the
them.
mic.
I
I
told
took the mic and started singing.
And I told the people, I said, Barbara is the leader of the Dixie Cups, not Eleanor. And we went on and we did the song, and we finished the song,
Sure.
and it was time to go. Well, Joe ran off stage. He was the drummer,
No, he was the piano player.
and he went off stage, and he told Eleanor, he said, go get your stuff. You got all your stuff? And she said, yeah. And he said, okay, well, lock the doors and I'll be back down. Well, it was the German lady that we were working for. And when Barbara went to the front desk to pay the bill, she said, oh, your manager, he said, you don't have any money. I said, what? We've been here 3 nights. She said, no, he said, you don't have no money. You spent all your money. And we didn't know at that point what to do, but I had a friend of mine that I went to school with.
Hold up.
And
Hold up. When we left the desk, we went to the car. Eleanor
Right.
was sitting in the car, and we asked her to open the door, and she acted like she couldn't hear us.
Eleanor.
Yes. So when Joe came out, he ran out, jumped in the car, and took off, and left our suitcases on the street.
So Joe and Eleanor took off and
Yes,
left you.
with no money and our luggage.
and I
So
called,
he stranded you right there.
exactly,
Yes.
he left us stranded.
Yes.
Never in my life had I been stranded anywhere. And I called my girlfriend that we went to school together at Cohen.
He didn't know
And-
you had a girlfriend nearby.
Right, he
Yeah,
didn't know.
He didn't know
No,
about her.
no.
He didn't know. And I called her. She was a stewardess. And I called her, and she had given me her number, and she said, anytime you and yada yada, give me a call and maybe we can get together and go out or whatever. So I called her, and it was nothing but God that made me call her. We were friends in school, but we were not tight friends, but I called her and I told her what was going on. And she said, oh, Rosa, she said, don't worry about that. She said, I'll send my girlfriend to pick you up. And I gave her the name of the hotel. And she came and she picked us up. She had a little bug, okay, little bitty bugs. And she picked us up. And we called our mom and we told my mom what had gone down. And mother said, well, what is the young lady's name and address? And I can send some money to get you guys home.
But the girl paid for us to go home since she worked for the airlines. She was able
So
to
you
get us-
actually got home before Joe Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that must have been a little bit of a shock.
Oh, yeah. He was standing in the door when
But we got there first. We got there first.
I don't know when you got there.
Yeah,
I
we,
finally got there.
because we flew, we got there before him because he was driving. So that's why we got there first.
And he had the audacity and the nerve to come to the door, use his key, open the door, and stood there and laughed and said, oh, I see y'all made it home. I said, okay, I'm gonna give you a little piece of wisdom. I want you to put it in your pocket and keep it. Never think you're going to take women from New Orleans, Louisiana, and leave them stranded in another area of the town that they don't know about. We'll get home. And we got home the lady way. We had airline tickets. And do you know, and I was so angry with my sister, he came down the next morning. Barbara and I had gone to this building and got jobs. It was called Spartan's Department Store. It wasn't a department store. It was the store that handled all of Spartan's clothes. And we went there on a train and we got jobs, and they put Barbara in one department and they had me in another department. And the lady that was the supervisor, she called me to her desk and she said, sweetheart, I just want to tell you something. I'm going to have to let you go. And I said, why? She said, because everybody here have seen you on television millions of times with the Supremes and the this and the that, and we know who you are. But what we paying you and where you're living does not match. And I can't answer for the salary that I have to give you for you to live where you're living. And I said, okay. So I went back and I told Barbara, and Barbara said, well, oh man. Well, when we got back home, Joe was standing in the middle of our living room, and he asked Barbara for money to pay his rent on the 8th floor, money to pay his
Girlfriend?
to pay whatever. And he said, I'll pay you back. And I told Barbara, I said, Barbara, please don't give him anything. Don't give him a dime. But see, he knew Barbara and me, and he knew the difference in us. And Barbara told me, she said, well, I can't just not give him. I mean, he have those kids and, you know, he needs money for those kids. So Barbara gave him the money. And I said, you give him the money. I'm going to call mother and tell her to send me a ticket. And it was a lot of other things. And as you can hear,
He in fact harassed you for almost a lifetime.
oh yeah, he did. He did. And if he
tried to
wasn't
keep
there,
you ladies from
he would still
working.
do it. He would still do it. But and I believe in God, and a lot of people say, well, Rosa, just turn it over to God because he's going to do it, and so forth and so on. And if you believe in God, you believe in it, but it's hard to do. It's hard to see another human being use young girls for no reason but for a dollar bill.
Let
So-
me interject one thing, what he did us before this happened. He was an artist. He played piano. And what he did us, we went on a job, he drove us and in his car, and on the job, he rehearsed the band and he played piano. Nobody asked him to do this, okay? When we got home, he told us we owed him for the rental of the car, for the gas it took to get there, as conductor for rehearsing the band, as a musician for playing on the job, and it was something else. And by the time he finished, we had no money.
And that's the way he always
And
got the money.
That was the real Joe Jones.
Any questions?
Yeah, we do. Thank you, Rosa, and thank you, Barbara, and thank you for sharing that. Also, that the ending and talking about the emotional part of it, because it's definitely felt like a lot. That was for sure that you guys dealt with. That was, and the fact that he was the piano player, claimed he was the piano player, made himself the piano player, even makes it even more kind of ridiculous to think.
Yes.
But we've got some good questions. I do have some questions for the future, so I'm going to save those towards the end. And if you do have any more questions, please put them in the chat and we'll get them answered. The first one was early on, you guys mentioned Papa Celis. Is that Papa Celestine?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
He had a big hit in New Orleans about the witch queen of New Orleans. I don't remember that. Rosa, Barbara, you remember the name of that
I
song?
don't remember that because we were so young at that time. And my mom was just traveling with them. But I don't remember.
It was Marie Laveau.
That's
Okay.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. John later recorded, and it was a very good song. Did the Meltones ever end up doing any recordings?
No, because we had to change our name. There was already a group called something like the Meltones, and Lieber and Stoller told us we had to change our name.
Gotcha. When you guys went on tour with Sonny and Cher,
Mhm.
was that because of was there the connection between Alvin Batiste? Because I know he was working with them at the time. Was there any connection with that because of the New Orleans connection?
I really don't know, because they were there one day and the next day it was like, well, where's Sonny? They were sitting right there. Nobody knew anything, so we left it alone.
And did you guys kind of do more like showcase shows where you'd come out, do a couple songs, and then another band would come out who had hits?
Right.
Do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those were probably pretty
That's the way
fun.
the tours went.
Let's see, what else we got here? Frank Cronin says, if you guys didn't know it, the Grateful Dead recorded a live version of Iko Iko.
Yes.
Right.
And I
they
actually
put
looked it
on
up. They
our
played
album.
at Lakefront Amphitheater in 1988 as well.
Right.
They didn't ask you guys to go on stage.
No.
it didn't.
No.
But
Okay.
I should add that the Dixie Cups, there were legal issues on the song Iko Iko. There was a similar song that was recorded earlier, but that all came from it was just a more or less a chant, right? In New Orleans that you ladies adopted. But Iko Iko, you have the rights to the song. Isn't that
Right,
right,
yes.
Barbara and Rosa?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, so they own the rights to the song to this day.
Wow.
And one of the things that Joe Jones did later on, there was a movie, it may have been in Europe, and they wanted to use the Iko Iko, and they didn't know that the Dixie Cups had the right. So they bought it from Joe Jones. Joe Jones didn't tell him. He told them that he had the rights to the song. And then the Dixie Cups had to sue Joe Jones to get that money, which they never
Exactly.
got.
Yeah. Yep. That's the kind of person he was. I saw a question pop up about how did we get the name, the Dixie Cups?
Yeah, that was coming up next. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Lieber and Stoller had given us a list of names, but we didn't like them. So again, we go over in a little corner And we came up with Dixie cups because during that era, everybody had other names. It weren't like Gladys or Mary or whatever. They were objects like animals and rolling stones and, you know, all of those things.
Mhm.
So we came up with Dixie cups because we thought it was cute.
And you were from the Dix.
And we're from New Orleans, land of Dixie, and cups was cute. So we said Dixie cups.
So Frank Cronin asked again, who brought up about the Grateful Dead woman. He brought us two good questions. The first one is one I think it's a good question. The second one I think you guys will laugh at. The Dixie Cups recorded some songs for ABC. Did the Dixie Cups record any songs for ABC Paramount? I guess that's the first question.
Yes,
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 we
we
did.
did.
And why weren't they hit records? Why didn't they chart, you think?
Because that's when they realized that we were
Right.
still connected to
Redbird.
Redbird.
Got it.
And Joe also realized that they wanted us. So he, like he always do, he in those lawsuits, if you put this record out, I'm gonna own this company. So they didn't want all of this hassle. And they said, okay, no problem. And they
So-
backed off.
We had records on the charts when that happened. We had a record on the chart with Redbird and What Goes Up Must Come Down with ABC Paramount. But because they were fighting, we were the ones that lost. Like I said, we had a musical death and we never recorded again.
You know, one of the problems with the ABC Paramount, I'll just add this, is that they tried to come up with an Iko-ish song. So in fact, it was called Two-Way Packaway, is that
Yeah,
right?
Two-Way
Yes.
Packaway, yeah.
So it wasn't, they tried to sort of cash in on the Iko sound with the song that frankly wasn't as good.
No, it
Mm.
wasn't. And they used the band instead of us doing it the way we did Iko.
But that then the legal business started, so they really didn't record maybe just a handful of songs, right? With
We
ABC.
did an album.
Right.
We did an album,
We had an album.
Steve.
Okay,
So this I'm sure you'll kind of laugh at, but Frank says that if you go to Joe Jones' Wikipedia page, it says
Yeah.
in there that, quote, he worked for the rights of his felon, but later on he worked for the recording rights of his fellow R&B artists. And
Yeah,
he
right.
has really question
Yeah,
mark,
right.
or is that another scam right there?
It
Mhm.
was.
It
It
was.
was another scam.
It was.
He tried with other artists to take their songs, and he succeeded with some. You know, there
Oh,
were.
wow. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So he actually did work with them. It just worked to his favor more than anything else.
Exactly. He
Yeah,
worked with them to get their work.
yeah, there were other legal battles with Joe Jones and other musicians from New Orleans, not
Exactly.
just the Dixie
Many.
Cups, but anybody who worked with it usually ended up in court.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So this is the final question, the future question. They want to know, will the Dixie Cups be performing at the next Jazz Fest?
Yes, we will.
Yes.
We will.
There-
We haven't received our date yet, but we will also be performing at the French Quarter Fest. We
Oh,
go-
in April, earlier April, yeah.
Yeah, we go on that Sunday. We do have that date. I don't know the time because it may change, but we do have those two dates and we'll be looking for everybody. Oh, let me mention this June coming up, Chapel of Love album will be released again on vinyl. The record company who owns the master now, next year they will be in business for 70 years. So what they're doing each month in next year, they're gonna release a different artist. So Chapel of Love will be released in June.
Well, that is fantastic.
It
Vinyl is
is.
back in. The circle is completed right there.
Right,
Yes.
right.
What was the name of that record company that's going to be releasing it? Do you know?
Oh, God, I have to think of it. Give me a minute. Talk to Rose.
Well, let me just point out, I did link the book one more time. You can buy it, hardcover of it for a little over $20. So I hope that you will take advantage of that. We got a lot of great stories tonight, and I appreciate everybody taking the time to be here
And
tonight.
I appreciate your
Sun Records.
Sun Records. Okay, there we go. That was a big name back in the day, that's for sure.
and I appreciate all our fans out there that dealt with me with everything that's going on. And it just goes to show you that a lot of people, young, old, whatever, they never know what's going on behind the
Closed
beautiful
doors.
dresses and, you know, all of this. And we've had a lot of young ladies come up to us over the years and say, oh man, I want to do what you're doing. Y'all are so pretty and yada, yada, yada. And sometimes I look at him and I smile and I want to say, no, baby, you don't want to get in this or this. You know, but
One final question on a high note. What is it like to perform in New Orleans at Jazz Fest on one of the big stages?
crazy.
Crazy?
It's awesome.
crazy.
It's awesome. We enjoyed. With the French Quarter Fest, we have an hour. With
Right.
Jazz Fest, it's just like they do a review, and
Mhm.
we have, you know, a few songs to do. So we want you to come and see us at French Quarter Fest because, you know, you'll have more time. And
You
one
get more
thing I
tips.
want to say is that show business is 90% business. It's only 10% show. That's true. If the business isn't right, the show won't go right.
And I learned that firsthand from my mom. Yes, I did.
Well, thank you, ladies. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Rosa. Steve,
you.
I appreciate you for doing the interview tonight. That was a really great interview. And I thank everybody for attending tonight. And we hope to
Thank
see you
you.
next week. You know, as you can see, tonight's Dixie Cup. Next week, it's about Cuba embargo. So we've got something for everybody at the Friends of the Cabildo. So I hope that you take advantage of that. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. You'll be getting you get to watch this 30 days afterwards. So if you want to watch it again, you're welcome to. And then those who signed up and did not make it tonight, you know, you'll get the opportunity to make sure you get to hear these stories. So ladies, I want to thank you so much. Steve, I appreciate it so much. And I hope everybody has a great night.
I just want to say
You guys
thank
want to see if you
you.
got any other friends that were on here?
Just
Tonight,
Elaine, I think.
and my son, I don't know if he made it or not.
But I have to say thank you, Jason, and thank you, Rosa, for letting me horn in on her.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll be getting Steve getting y'all's addresses to send the honorariums for tonight as well. So we appreciate you guys doing it tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, take care, Steve.
Bye.